My name is Vivian Prescott. I'm 30, a marketing consultant, and until 8 months ago I believed I understood what family meant. Growing up wealthy in Boston came with an unwritten rulebook everyone expected you to memorize. This year tested every page of it, ever since I left my father's investment firm to build something of my own. When I arrived at my parents' home on Ashcombe Hill that Thanksgiving morning, clutching a homemade pecan pie, my parents blocked the doorway like a pair of well-dressed bouncers at the world's least forgiving nightclub. "You are not invited," my father said, flat as a closed ledger. Behind him I caught my sister Genevieve, Uncle Reginald, and my supposed best friend Charlotte, laughing around the table where I used to sit. Let me back up, because the context is better than any streaming drama, with a life lesson tucked somewhere between the betrayal and the pie. My father, Nathaniel Prescott, founded Prescott Capital Group 40 years ago, building it into one of Boston's most respected firms. Success wasn't expected in our house. It was the only acceptable weather. My mother, Eleanor, maintained our social standing with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. Charity boards, flawless dinners, and inspections of my sister and me that would make customs agents jealous. "A Prescott never shows weakness," she'd remind us. My sister Genevieve followed our father's exact footsteps. Harvard Business School, straight into the firm, never questioning the legacy. I fell in love with marketing instead, much to my father's horror. "Marketing is for people who can't handle real business," he told me once, as if I'd announced I was joining the circus. I earned my degree from Boston University anyway and joined Prescott Capital's marketing department, working 6 years to prove I belonged, eventually becoming director of client relations. Then, 8 months ago, I noticed irregular transaction patterns while prepping a client presentation, the kind of numbers that make an accountant's eyebrow twitch. My father didn't thank me for catching it. He snatched the files back. "Those accounts are handled personally by me. Stick to your brochures." Weeks of quiet warfare followed. Shrinking file access, Genevieve taking over my meetings, my questions met with silence. Charlotte Bennett had been my best friend since college, adopted instantly by my family. My mother called her practically a Prescott, which in hindsight was uncomfortably accurate. She joined the firm 2 years after me and became a fixture at every holiday. Uncle Reginald, my father's brother and the firm's legal counsel, always marched to a kinder drum, though even his warmth had cooled lately. The breaking point came when I landed Ashford Holdings, a client my father had chased for years. Instead of celebrating, he grew suspicious. "How exactly did you convince Thomas Ashford to sign?" he demanded, as if I'd bribed a judge instead of building a strategy. "Your job is to support this family's interests, not your own portfolio," he said. 2 weeks later I resigned and launched Sterling Bridge Consultancy, taking my client relationships with me. The fallout was brutal. My mother stopped answering calls. Genevieve sent a scorched earth email accusing me of betrayal. My father threatened legal action, then backed down when his lawyers pointed out how that would look. Only my cousin Beatrice kept in touch. "They talk about you like you're the enemy now," she confided. "Something big is happening at the company." Thanksgiving had always been sacred, engineered by my mother down to the napkin folds. I never imagined they'd cut me out entirely. On the phone the week before, my mother's voice carried a chill I mistook for ordinary criticism. "The usual time, dear. 2 o'clock. Wear something appropriate this year." I woke that morning cautiously hopeful. Hope I should have charged interest on. I baked my father's favorite pecan pie using my grandmother's recipe, chose a forest green sweater my mother once complimented, styled my hair her preferred conservative way. Every choice calculated, every choice pointless as it turned out. "Family is everything," I reminded myself, grabbing the pie and a bottle of excellent Cabernet from a client's vineyard, a quiet flex of my new life I still hoped they'd appreciate. Turning onto Birchwood Lane, my stomach dropped at the number of cars lining the curb. Charlotte's Audi, Uncle Reginald's Mercedes, Genevieve's Range Rover, and cars I didn't recognize. I parked a block away and walked toward the brownstone like a woman attending a peace summit that had already been cancelled without her knowledge. Candlelight flickered through the windows. Laughter drifted out. I rang the bell. The laughter inside dimmed instantly, like someone hit mute on the whole house. My parents opened the door like a pair of sentries. "Vivian," my father said without warmth, "what are you doing here?" "I'm here for Thanksgiving." Mom confirmed it, 2 o'clock. "There's been a misunderstanding," my mother said. "You are not invited this year." Through the gap I saw the dining room, the family china, my mother's centerpiece, and Genevieve in burgundy, Uncle Reginald with his scotch, and worst of all Charlotte, sitting in what had always been my seat. "But I brought pie," I said, immediately aware of how absurd that sounded. "Dad's favorite." "That won't be necessary," my father replied. "We have dessert arranged. I think it's best if you leave." The truth settled over me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was choreography. "Can I ask why?" "Managed." "I think you know why," my mother whispered. "Your choices have consequences." The door shut with total finality. Inside, someone turned the music up, papering over the awkward silence I'd left behind. I walked back to my car, pride keeping my shoulders straight, refusing to let them see me crumble. Through the bay window, I noticed a new banner behind my father's chair. "Family First" in gold letters. The irony practically wrote its own punchline. The hurt curdled into clarity. They had made their choice. Now I would make mine. I drove without a destination, ending up along the Charles River. Charlotte's presence in my seat wasn't coincidence. She'd known and said nothing. Uncle Reginald had sat among them without protest. I thought of Julian Hastings, a friend from my brief law school days who now investigated financial fraud for the SEC. 3 months earlier, after too much wine at an alumni mixer, I'd confided my concerns about the firm's accounts. "Do you have proof?" he'd asked. "I copied some files," I'd admitted. "But I haven't looked at them. Family loyalty, you know. Just in case." He'd slid his card across the table. "If you ever decide to look, call me. Some matters go beyond family loyalty." Quick fact since we're here. The SEC doesn't need a smoking gun to open a case. A documented pattern of irregular transfers and restricted access is often enough to trigger a preliminary inquiry. Which was exactly what I was sitting on. My thumb hovered over the call button. This was the point of no return, and I pressed it anyway. Julian picked up on the third ring, kids audible behind him. "Vivian, happy Thanksgiving. Everything okay?" "Not exactly," I said, steadier than expected. "Remember those files? I think it's time I showed them to you. This sounds serious. Once we start looking, we can't unsee what we find." "I'm sure." My family made their position very clear. "Tomorrow, 8 a.m. bring everything." I drove home the long way, past my old elementary school, the ice cream shop that celebrated good report cards, a highlight reel of a family that maybe never existed the way I remembered. Genevieve texted, "This is for the best. You brought this on yourself." No explanation, just a verdict. At home, I traded my outfit for jeans, set the rejected pie on the counter, and poured a very generous glass of the wine nobody wanted. Dinner became crackers, deli turkey, and grapes, assembled with the dignity of a woman refusing to let a holiday win. "Happy Thanksgiving to me." I toasted no one. The first sip cracked something open, and I cried. For the family I thought I had, for Charlotte's betrayal. When the tears passed, they left behind clean, sharp clarity. I opened the hidden panel behind my bookshelf. Yes, my apartment has a secret panel, and no, I will not be taking further questions about my flair for the dramatic, and pulled out the documents I'd copied months earlier. Irregular withdrawal patterns. Investment reports that didn't match actual performance. Transfers to offshore entities with vague names and vaguer paperwork. Then the emails. My father and Genevieve discussing how to adjust reported returns, corporate language dressing up a very old crime with a very simple name. A Ponzi scheme, using new client money to patch holes left by old withdrawals, run with the polish only a Harvard Business School education provides. Worse, my name appeared. "Vivian's access needs to be restricted." My father had written 3 weeks before I found the irregularities. "Already handled," Genevieve replied. Charlotte's helped redirect her attention. Charlotte's name turned up again and again, always working quietly against me. Vivian mentioned concerns about the Osaka transfers. I deflected. Should we be worried? My father's reply chilled me. Maintain normal relations with Vivian while we assess the situation. My best friend had been reporting on me, using our friendship as surveillance. It hurt worse than the door slamming that morning. A folder labeled personal held the second gut punch. Photos of Charlotte and Genevieve together at events I'd never attended, culminating in one at my father's lake house that read as far more than friendship. Charlotte hadn't just betrayed me professionally. She'd built a second life with my sister while playing my confidant. My phone rang. Julian, unable to wait until morning. I started looking into Prescott Capital. Serious red flags. Patterns suggesting systematic fraud going back at least 6 years. There's more. Yesterday the firm held an emergency board meeting. Your father transferred significant ownership to your sister and someone named Charlotte Bennett. And there was activity on a trust fund registered to you. Substantial withdrawals requiring dual authorization. My trust fund. Locked by my grandparents until I turned 35. They can't touch that without my signature, I protested. Someone did, Julian said. We'll need to look into fraud or identity theft. Are you prepared to formally submit this evidence? It will almost certainly lead to charges against your family. I hesitated. These were the people who taught me to ride a bike. But they were also the people who'd stood at that door and told me I wasn't welcome. Yes, I said. I just need to make copies first. I spent the next hour organizing evidence chronologically and by violation type, building a file even a total stranger to finance could follow, which it turns out is exactly how good whistleblower documentation should be built. Clear, dated, and boring enough that a jury doesn't need a finance degree. My finger hovered over send. I thought of my mother after a childhood nightmare, my father praising my first report card, Genevieve's hand in mine on our first day of school. Then I thought of the closed door, the family first banner, my rated trust fund, and the investors trusting my father with their life savings, unaware it propped up a lie. I pressed send to Julian the SEC, and with a brief explanation to Thomas Ashford and other major investors. A final message went to Beatrice. Things are about to change dramatically. Be careful with your own investments. Then, in a strange act of normalcy, I made a proper Thanksgiving plate out of turkey sandwiches and instant mashed potatoes, because apparently even personal earthquakes need side dishes. 19 minutes later my father's text arrived. What have you done? Then the flood. My mother's frantic voicemails, Genevieve's texts spiraling from fury to panic, Charlotte's damage control. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Please call me. I answered none of them. One message stood apart. Uncle Reginald. I suspected something was wrong but didn't want to believe it. You showed more courage than I did. Don't meet with any family members alone. Then the news alerts. Trading suspended for Prescott Capital Group pending inquiry. My father's final text read like a mob ultimatum. You have 20 minutes to explain how you'll fix this. Some bells cannot be unrung. I let the 20 minutes pass. Exactly 22 minutes later my doorbell rang. My entire family stood in the hallway. My father disheveled, my mother pale, Genevieve streaked with mascara, Charlotte hanging back, thoroughly miserable, the world's most awkward reunion tour. How could you do this to your own family? My father erupted. My mother hushed him, glancing at the neighbors' doors. If you want to talk, come inside, I said, stepping back. But you will not shout at me in my own home. You need to retract everything, my father demanded. Call your SEC contact. Retract documented fraud and identity theft. I don't think that's possible, Dad. Do you understand what this does to our reputation? My mother said. Was it loyalty, I asked, when you accessed my trust fund without authorization? When you seated the woman who spied on me in my chair? Genevieve, sinking uninvited onto my couch, finally cracked. You don't understand the pressure. Dad needed the returns to keep major clients. Started small. Then it grew. Not another word, my father snapped. She's probably recording this. I don't need to record anything, I said. The documents already talk. Charlotte stepped forward, eyes red. This affects more than your family. Employees. Clients. You lost the right to lecture me about destruction, I said. You used our friendship to spy on me. All while you were involved with my sister. Uncle Reginald slipped in with a warning. The SEC had frozen the firm's accounts. They're looking for someone to blame, and they've decided it should be you, he told me. My father pivoted to leverage. Cooperate now and we protect you. Otherwise our lawyers present evidence of your involvement. Evidence you'd fabricate, I said calmly. I documented my concerns for months. I was never a signatory on the fraudulent transfers. My mother tried soft persuasion. My old position back, more authority. My father followed with straight bribery. Name your price. 2 million. 7 million. What will it take? I already have what I need, I said. The truth. Truth doesn't pay bills, he scoffed. Genevieve pivoted to strategy. She controls the Ashcombe Trust shares now that she's 30. If they vote with the board members already questioning leadership, you could lose the company even without the SEC. Is this about control? My father asked, recalculating. We can negotiate that. No, I said. This is about the people who trusted you with their futures while you used their money as your personal piggy bank. My mother crumpled onto the couch. We'll be ruined. You never should have pushed me away, I said quietly. Now I need all of you to leave. My lawyer will handle further communication. Charlotte tried once more. I know I hurt you. But you have to believe I cared. A real friend doesn't sit at the table while you're turned away at the door, I said. You made your choice. Now live with it. They left one by one. My father storming out, my mother pausing with something like grief, Genevieve hesitating in silence, Charlotte last, whispering a hollow apology. Only Uncle Reginald lingered. This will get worse before it gets better, he warned. But you did the right thing. I should have done it myself years ago. When the door closed, I stood alone amid the wreckage of a makeshift Thanksgiving. And underneath it, something unfamiliar and clean, freedom. 1 year later, I stood in my Cambridge townhouse kitchen arranging autumn flowers for a table set for 8. A very different aroma than last year's rejected pie. Prescott Capital Group underwent a full restructuring after the investigation revealed fraud affecting hundreds of clients. My father, facing federal charges, accepted a plea deal. Full cooperation, steep penalties, house arrest instead of prison, in exchange for surrendering the firm to a court-appointed board. That board approached me 3 months later. We need someone with the Prescott name who wasn't implicated, the new chairperson said. Your reputation for ethics is exactly what we need. I accepted a board seat overseeing compliance. The irony of becoming my family's moral compass wasn't lost on me, but I took it seriously for the sake of the clients who'd been harmed. My relationships shifted in ways I never predicted. My mother kept her distance, retreating to the family's New Hampshire lake house. Genevieve surprisingly reached out 6 months in. I've been in therapy, she admitted over coffee. I needed to understand why I prioritized Dad's approval over basic ethics. We rebuilt slowly, one honest conversation at a time. She now works a junior role at a small firm in Providence, oddly at peace with straightforward, boring ethical work. Charlotte tried to reconcile. Letters, apologies. I offered formal forgiveness but made clear our friendship couldn't be rebuilt. Some breaches simply run too deep. Uncle Reginald became an unexpected ally, using his legal skill to shield innocent employees from the fallout. I enabled your father too long, he admitted. Standing by silently is its own kind of complicity. He now serves beside me on the board. Cousin Beatrice joined my consultancy, bringing sharp instincts and an ethical compass I trust completely. The doorbell rang. Beatrice arrived first, wine and cranberry sauce in hand. Happy Thanksgiving. Your first time hosting. How does it feel? Terrifying and wonderful, I laughed. I genuinely don't know if this turkey is edible. The food barely matters, she said. It's about making a space where people feel valued for who they are. Over the next hour, my chosen family filled the townhouse. Julian and his wife Rosalind, Uncle Reginald and his partner Desmond, my former assistant Margaret, who'd left Prescott Capital to join my consultancy, and to my surprise Genevieve arriving alone with a pecan pie. I remembered it was Dad's favorite, she said hesitantly. But it's yours too, right? The gesture caught me completely off guard. Yes, I managed. Thank you for remembering. As we gathered around the table, I looked at faces connected not by obligation but by choice. Before we ate, I raised my glass. A year ago, I thought losing my family meant losing everything. Instead, it made room for something more honest to grow. Family isn't defined by blood, but by who stands beside you when it costs them something. We shared a quiet moment before the laughter picked back up. Later, over pie, I understood something I might never have learned otherwise. Sometimes the door has to close before you can find the table that was actually meant for you. As my guests gathered their coats, I felt a contentment no perfectly orchestrated family performance had ever given me, even with a slightly overcooked turkey and mismatched chairs borrowed from 3 different neighbors. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and your own values? Sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most unexpected blessings, and sharing them helps someone else find the courage for their own. Wishing you a holiday season full of honest connections and a table full of people who'd actually show up for you.